I'll be honest, I'm barely qualified to assemble a bookshelf, so the idea of someone waking up one day and deciding, yeah, murder seems like the move, feels dramatic. I mean, I get stressed doing my taxes. If a number looks at me wrong, I take a nap. I don't launch a personal crime franchise, but every documentary insists on framing these people like they were destined for supervillainy. There's always ominous music and a narrator whispering, "This moment changed everything." And then the moment is Timmy breaking a lamp and nobody telling him to knock it off. It's less tragic descent into darkness and more a series of missed parent-teacher conferences. And don't worry, we're not here to joke about the crimes. The crimes are awful. The decisions leading up to the crimes, though, those are baffling. Someone thinking, with total sincerity, yes, this seems like a good plan. That's the part where the comedy lives. So that's what we're doing, peeling back the origin stories nobody asked for and definitely nobody needed. Because once you see the mistakes these people made, it becomes very clear how preventable the whole mess was. And somehow, it all starts earlier than anyone wants to admit. Number 1. Thinking weird childhood hobbies are just phases. Imagine a kid proudly announcing, "These are my friends," and then opening a shoebox full of dead bugs. Not drawings of bugs, the actual bugs. That's not a phase. That's a plot twist. We all know normal childhood phases. Dinosaurs, Pokemon, refusing to eat food that touches other food. But somewhere along the line, adults started lumping that in with little Jimmy keeps setting leaves on fire like he's auditioning to be the world's tiniest arsonist. According to a statistic I absolutely made up but still kind of believe, 99% of kids who light things on fire grow out of it. The remaining 1% get their own Netflix special and a title card with ominous piano notes. Take Jeffrey Dahmer. While other kids were dissecting frogs in science class because the teacher made them, he was out here collecting roadkill like he was building a resume for the world's worst vet clinic. Someone should have said, "Buddy, no." But instead, everyone just shrugged, probably assuming he'd move on to baseball or something. And once the warning signs get labeled as quirks, they don't stop. They escalate, especially when nobody steps in to say, "Hey, maybe the shoebox needs to go." Number 2. The support system that was not. Here's a fun question. What happens when a kid with red flag hobbies is raised in a home environment that's basically emotional airplane mode? You get Charles Manson. The man grew up with so much instability, he might as well have been raised by the concept of buffering. Every time you think his childhood is done loading, it freezes and starts over. Then there's Ted Bundy, whose family situation had so many surprise plot twists, it felt like a soap opera written by someone who forgot about continuity. It's the kind of backstory a writer would delete because it feels too obvious, like they were trying way too hard to justify why the villain becomes the villain. Real life, apparently, does not believe in subtlety. Meanwhile, I once drew a smiley face on the living room wall and got grounded for a week. At the time, it felt harsh. Looking back, it was practically a wellness intervention, because somewhere out there, another kid was building a torture shed in the backyard and being told, "Oh, that's just his creative phase." Creative phase? My creative phase involved crayons. His involved power tools. And when nobody bothers to put up boundaries, these kids wander into society thinking they're perfectly normal. That's when things start wobbling into truly chaotic territory. Number 3. Letting these people become adults. Picture this. Someone with the emotional stability of a spilled smoothie is suddenly handed adult responsibilities, a job, rent, laundry. The world just shrugs and says, "Yeah, you're 18 now. Good luck out there." It's incredible optimism, honestly. We talk about entering the workforce like it's this rite of passage, but some of these guys hit adulthood like a Windows update that keeps restarting at 12% and eventually gives up. Take David Berkowitz. Most people cope with job stress by eating too many snacks in the break room. He blamed his actions on a demon dog. Imagine explaining that to HR. "Yeah, sorry I missed the meeting. My neighbor's Labrador told me to commit crimes." That's not even write-up territory. That's a full system reboot. And sure, people like to romanticize the whole tortured loner thing, but half of these men were barely functional. I can't stop wondering how someone can spiral into that level of chaos and still manage the basics. They're out here plotting evil schemes, but I'm supposed to believe they also remember to pay the water bill? But that's adulthood. It magnifies everything. Good habits get better. Bad habits turn into sirens. And when those early warning signs go unchecked, Adulthood doesn't calm anything down, it just turns the volume up until everyone else finally notices the noise. Number 4. Society. Missing all the red flags. Let's be honest. Weird neighbor with a bad smell is usually enough for most people to at least Google the HOA rule. But somehow, in these stories, that's just level 1, the warm-up round. Level 2 is when the weird neighbor also has suspicious barrels labeled property of not the FBI, and everyone still goes, huh, must be doing a science project. By level 3, the guy is saying things like, don't look in the freezer, and instead of calling someone anyone, the visitor just nods politely and goes home to watch TV. I've ignored red flags before, sure, but never the kind with hinges and a padlock. And then there's the real, unbelievable stuff. Like the time Jeffrey Dahmer literally had police return a victim to his apartment. The officers took one look at a situation that basically had pop-up warnings all over it and clicked ignore. It's the human version of when your computer tells you, this action may destroy everything, and you hit yes because you're in a hurry. These red flags weren't subtle. They were practically waving those inflatable tube man arms. But once everyone trains themselves not to react, the mistakes keep compounding until even the obvious stops looking obvious. And by then, the story is already heading somewhere no one wants it to go. Number 5. Trying to turn red flags into mythology. Here's the wild part. After everything, every shoebox, every demon dog, every freezer nobody was supposed to open, we still somehow managed to turn these people into legends. Hollywood takes a guy who couldn't keep track of his own car keys and turns him into a shadowy mastermind who outwitted society. Half of them were caught because they left their name on a note. Not a clue. A note. And then there's true crime fandom, where some corners of the internet talk about these men like they had superpowers. They didn't have superpowers. Their one big ability was that no one intervened early enough to say, hey, maybe don't build a shrine out of animal bones. That's not destiny. That's poor supervision. It all loops back to those childhood warning signs, the ones adults shrugged off because acknowledging them would have required actual effort, a little honesty, a little boundary setting, maybe a quick, no, Timmy, we're not doing that. And half the documentaries on streaming platforms wouldn't exist. But once you start turning red flags into folklore, it gets easy to forget they were supposed to be warnings in the first place. And that's when the story quietly shifts from comedy to caution.